Good morning, students. So in the previous class we had studied about the GI disorders in the children, where we have completely studied about the GI disorders of the children. So now we'll see what are the neurological disorders that are common in children. So what are the neurological disorders which is commonly seen in children, so that I'll be dealing with today. So I'll be taking today. So we'll start with the class. The topic which I'll be taking today in this video, it is meningitis. So you all have studied about meningitis. So in the medical surgical nursing I have dealt with meningitis. So what is meningitis? So meningitis, it is nothing but inflammation of the meninges. So what is meninges? It is the outer covering of the brain and spinal cord. So the meningitis, it is usually like inflammation of the meninges. So meninges is nothing but the outer covering of the brain and spinal cord. So this is the most common disease which is affecting children. Okay, it is the most common disease that usually affects the meninges in children. So it is the common disease that is usually occurring in the children. So meningitis, what happens in this meningitis is that it can occur, okay, it occurs when fluid surrounding the meninges, okay, fluid surrounding the meninges become infected, okay, the fluid surrounding the meninges become infected. That usually leads to inflammation of the brain, okay, that usually leads to inflammation of the brain. So this is usually tissue. So this condition, okay, when meningitis, okay, when the baby is suffering, when the child is suffering from meningitis, so occurs when the fluid surrounding the meninges gets infected, and that usually leads to damage to the or inflammation to the brain tissues. This is usually known as meningoencephalitis, okay, this is usually known as meningoencephalitis. So what is that? Meningitis, it is usually the inflammation of the meninges. Meninges is nothing but the it is the outer covering of the brain and spinal cord. This is the common disease which is usually affecting the children. And in this, what happens is that meningitis, when it occurs, it usually gets fluid which is surrounding the meninges gets infected. So when it gets infected, it usually leads to inflammation of the brain tissue. It usually leads to inflammation of the brain tissue, and when this occurs, again, meningitis as well as the brain tissues, if it is inflamed, that is usually known as meningoencephalitis. Okay, that is usually known as meningoencephalitis. Understood? Meningitis, it is nothing but inflammation of the meninges. Meninges is that which usually covers the outer covering of the brain and spinal cord. This is commonly a disease which is occurring in the children. So in this, usually what is happening, so when meningitis occurs, the fluid which is surrounding the meninges gets infected. That usually leads to inflammation of the brain tissue. Okay, that usually leads to inflammation of the brain tissue, and this condition is usually called as meningoencephalitis. Okay, this is usually called as meningoencephalitis. So next is types of meningitis. Okay, there are different types of meningitis like pyogenic meningitis, tuberculosis meningitis, aseptic meningitis, and syphilitic meningitis. Okay, there are different types of meningitis: pyogenic meningitis, tuberculosis meningitis, syphilitic meningitis, and aseptic meningitis. So in this type, the conditions like pyogenic and tuberculosis meningitis only we will be studying. Okay, conditions such as pyogenic and tuberculosis meningitis we will be studying. So next is causes of this meningitis. So types we have studied: pyogenic, tuberculosis, syphilitic, and aseptic, where we will be concentrating on pyogenic and tuberculosis meningitis. So next is causes. So the common cause for this meningitis, or the which causes this meningitis, is viral and bacteria. Okay, this viral and bacteria. So yeah, this is the main common cause of this meningitis. So it is virus and bacteria. So this is the main common cause of this meningitis, that is virus and bacteria. The other causes for this meningitis, it includes like it can be due to cancer, it can be due to chemical irritation, or it can be due to fungi, or it can be due to drug allergy, okay, or it can be due to drug allergy. So the other causes for this meningitis, okay, the other causes for this meningitis, it is mainly, it is usually like cancer, chemical irritation, drugs, or any drug toxicity, or in case of fungi. So these are usually the causes of meningitis. So meningitis is nothing but inflammation of the meninges, which is the meninges, it is nothing but the outer covering of the brain and spinal cord. So this is commonly this disease which is occurring in the children. So here it affects the fluid which is surrounding the meninges will be infected. Due to that, it leads to inflammation of the brain tissue, that is usually called as meningoencephalitis. So there are different types of meningitis: pyogenic, tuberculosis, aseptic, and syphilitic. The causes for this meningitis, it is viral and bacteria. This is the main cause which is causing this meningitis, and the other causes of this meningitis can be like cancer, chemical irritants, use of continuous exposure to chemical irritants, drug intoxicity, and as well as due to fungal infection. So this is usually about this causes of meningitis. Now we'll see one by one the types like pyogenic and tuberculosis. In that first we see this pyogenic meningitis. We'll see what is this pyogenic meningitis. So pyogenic meningitis, it is usually occurs when there is bacterial infection in the child. Okay, it usually occurs when there is bacterial infection in the child. Okay, so this pyogenic meningitis occurs when there is bacterial infection in the children. The common bacteria which causes this meningitis, it can be like influenza, streptococcus, staphylococcus, pneumococcal and meningococcal. So the common bacteria which causes this meningitis, it might be like streptococcal, staphylococcal, pneumococcal, meningococcal and influenza. Okay, these are the bacteria which is causing this pyogenic meningitis. Okay, these are the bacteria which is usually causing this pyogenic meningitis. So that is usually about this thing. So this usually occurs in the infants and the neonates due to immature immune system. Okay, this usually occurs in the infants and the neonates, that is due to immature immune system as well as poor phagocytic mechanism So pyogenic meningitis, it usually occurs due to the bacterial infection, and the bacteria which causes this, it is mainly like staphylococcus, staphylococcus, like pneumococcal, meningococcal as well as influenza. So this is usually seen in the infants and neonates. It occurs mainly due to immature immune system as well as poor phagocytic mechanism. So that is usually about this thing. So next is features of pyogenic meningitis. Okay, features of pyogenic meningitis, or features of like different types are there. So individual types. Okay, the features of individual type, what are the things that is usually present? So in that first is pyogenic meningitis. So this is the, I have told you, this is the common, this is also known as meningococcal meningitis. Okay, it is also called as meningococcal meningitis. It is also known as cerebrospinal fever. Okay, it is also known as cerebrospinal fever. So this is acute in onset. Okay, this is acute in onset, and this is usually severe, and it usually occurs as epidemic. Okay, it usually occurs as epidemic. So individually we will see what are the features of this different types of meningitis. In that first is pyogenic meningitis. This is also known as meningococcal meningitis, or it is also known as cerebrospinal fever. Okay, it is also known as cerebrospinal fever. So this onset is acute. The onset is acute, and it is usually epidemic. So next is tuberculosis meningitis. Tuberculosis meningitis differs from other meningitis. Okay, tuberculosis meningitis differs from other meningitis. The onset is gradual. Okay, so in this the onset is gradual. It takes about 1 or 2 weeks. Okay, it usually takes about 1 or 2 weeks to develop. So the onset is gradual, and it usually takes about 1 or 2 weeks to develop. So that is usually there. So that is usually about this tuberculosis meningitis. So first is pyogenic meningitis, so next is tuberculosis meningitis, and the third is syphilitic meningitis. Okay, syphilitic meningitis is a rare condition. Okay, it is usually rare condition. So this usually occurs due to any infection, like syphilic infection. So syphilis. Okay, this usually occurs as a secondary infection due to syphilis. Okay, so that is usually, this is a rare condition, and this usually occurs due to secondary infection due to syphilis. Okay, it usually occurs as a secondary infection due to syphilis. So next is aseptic meningitis. Okay, so next is aseptic meningitis. So in case of this aseptic meningitis, so this is caused due to viral fungi or protozoa. Okay, it is usually caused due to viral fungi and protozoa, and this is also rare infection. Okay, this is also rare infection. So that is usually about this. The features of individual types of meningitis. In that pyogenic meningitis. Pyogenic meningitis is also called as meningococcal meningitis. So this is usually occurs acute, and it is also known as cerebrospinal fever. And then tuberculosis meningitis, it is usually different from other types of meningitis. See, onset is gradual and takes about 2 to 3 weeks to develop. So next is syphilitic meningitis. So this occurs as a secondary infection due to syphilis. So next is aseptic meningitis. It is usually caused by this viral fungi and parasites. It is usually caused viral fungi and protozoa. The onset is acute. Okay, the onset is acute, and this is also rare condition. So this is about this different individual features of different types of meningitis. So next is causes of pyogenic. We are discussing about pyogenic meningitis, right? So we'll see what are the causes of this pyogenic meningitis. So the causes is mainly due to any local bacterial infection. Okay, it occurs due to any local bacterial infection such as sinusitis, rhinitis, mastoiditis, otitis media, pharyngitis or acute respiratory infection. So this occurs due to local bacterial infection. It occurs due to local bacterial infection such as sinusitis, rhinitis, mastoiditis, otitis media or pharyngitis, or if the baby is suffering from acute respiratory infection. So that is usually there. So next, the common bacteria I have told you in the definition: Staphylococcus, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, meningococcal bacteria. So that is usually there. And the virus which usually causes this meningitis, it is influenza herpes simplex virus. Okay, the virus that usually causes this meningitis, it is herpes simplex virus and influenza. And the fungi which causes this meningitis, it is usually candida. Okay, the fungi that causes this meningitis, it is candida. So that is usually about this causes. So causes, it is mainly caused due to local bacterial infections such as sinusitis, otitis media, mastoiditis, pharyngitis and acute respiratory infection. And the bacteria which causes this infection, it is Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, meningococcal and Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And the viruses which causes this meningitis, it is herpes simplex virus and influenza. And the fungi which causes this infection, it is candida. So this is about this causes of pyogenic meningitis. So next is pathophysiology. So what is this pathophysiology? What happens? So this usually occurs on the, it usually occurs, I have told you, for local bacterial infection. Same way on the entry of bacteria, that this entry of bacteria, it penetrates into the blood-brain tissues. Okay, it penetrates into the blood-brain tissue barrier. Okay, it usually penetrates in the blood-brain tissue barrier. That usually initiates, when it penetrates into this barrier, it initiates CSF inflammatory response. Okay, it initiates CSF inflammatory response. Okay, it usually initiates CSF inflammatory response. That usually leads to leakage of protein fluid of cerebral vasculature. Okay, that usually leads to leakage of protein and fluid of the cerebral vasculature. So that usually leads to septicemia. Septicemia occurs in the blood-brain vessels. Okay, septicemia occurs in the brain-blood vessels. That usually leads to cerebral edema. Okay, that usually leads to cerebral edema as well as venous thrombosis, cerebral venous thrombosis. This usually in turn leads to intracranial pressure will be increased. Okay, intracranial pressure will be increased. That leads to cerebral perforation, and due to this cerebral perforation, cerebral infraction can occur and brain death can. Okay, cerebral infraction can occur and brain death can occur. So that is usually about this pathophysiology. The pathophysiology occurs on the entry of the bacteria. That usually leads to penetration of into the blood-brain tissue. That usually leads to increased CSF inflammatory process. When this inflammatory process is increased, then that leads to septicemia, and this septicemia in turn leads to cerebral edema and thrombosis. Then in turn it usually leads to cerebral perforation, intracranial pressure, and this usually leads to cerebral perfusion, and when this in turn usually leads to cerebral infraction and brain death. So that is usually about this pathophysiology. The pathophysiology occurs on the entry of the brain, on the entry of the bacteria that usually penetrates into the blood-brain tissues. That in turn leads to increased CSF inflammatory response. When there is increased inflammatory response, that usually leads to septicemia, and this septicemia leads to thrombosis as well as cerebral edema. That in turn leads to increased intracranial pressure, cerebral perfusion will be there, and in turn it leads to cerebral infraction and brain death. So this is usually about this pathophysiology of pyogenic bacteria. So next is symptoms. Symptoms, it is usually the onset is sudden. Okay, the onset is sudden, and the onset of the symptoms is sudden. The symptoms usually includes like fever will be there, headache, vomiting, restlessness, malaise, convulsion. Pulse will be very slow. Okay, pulse will be very slow. This is the common symptom. This is the common symptom which is present in all the children. Fever, vomiting, restlessness, malaise, convulsion, and pulse will be relatively slow. So these are usually the common symptoms that is usually present in the children who are suffering from pyogenic meningitis. The symptoms which is seen in infants. Okay, we'll see the symptoms which is seen in the infants. So in infants, the symptoms that is usually seen, it is mainly the infants, neonates refuse to feed. Okay, the neonates refuse to feed. Okay, they will not be having interested to take feed. Okay, they will not be having breast milk also. They will not be drinking breast milk also. So that is usually the refusal to feed. Then cry will be very high pitched. Okay, the cry will be very high pitched cry. Okay, the cry will be high pitched cry, and then hypothermia will be there. Seizures develop, tiredness will be there, jaundice develops, as well as fontanelle will be bulged. Okay, the fontanelle will be bulged. So in neonates, the symptoms that we can see it is that refusal to feed, cry will be high pitched, jaundice develops, fontanelle bulges, lethargy as well as hypothermia. So these are the symptoms that is usually seen in the infant. The symptoms which is seen in the children, it is mainly they will be irritable too much. Okay, they will be irritable too much, and also they will be having mental confusion. Okay, they will be having mental confusion. Photophobia will be there, and also they will be having squint. Okay, they develop squint. Diplopia will be there. Diplopia is nothing but double vision. So diplopia will be developing. Neck rigidity will be there. Stroke can develop. Kernig sign will be there. Okay, Kernig sign, Brudenskine sign. I have already discussed you in the medical surgical nursing. The same thing it is usually there. So Kernig signs develops. Then positive Brudenskine sign will be there, as well as neurological defects will be there. Okay, neurological defects such as hemiparesis, cranial nerve palsy, and also. So these are usually the neurological defects that is usually seen. So these are the symptoms that is usually seen in the children. So what are the symptoms that is usually seen? They will be irritable, positive Kernig sign, Brudenskine sign, Kernig sign, stroke develops, shock will be developed, and also there will be lethargy. Then they will be having photophobia, neck rigidity will be there, squint develops, diplopia will be there. So these are usually the symptoms that is usually seen in the children. So this is about the symptoms of pyogenic meningitis. So common symptoms is fever, vomiting, headache, restlessness, malaise, convulsion, as well as pulse will be very slow. And in infants you can see that cry will be high pitched, they will not be eating properly, and the fontanella bulges, hypothermia will be there, seizures will be there. So that is usually seen. And next is usually in children you can see they are different, like Brudenskine sign will be positive, Kernig sign will be there, neck rigidity will be there, neurological defects such as hemiparesis will be there, then diplopia will be there, and also they will be having squint. So these are usually symptoms that is usually seen in the children. So this is about the symptoms of pyogenic meningitis. So next is diagnosis. So diagnosis, we go with CSF examination should be done, like CSF culture, everything should be done so that we can know the exact bacteria which is causing this meningitis. Then we go with protein level in the CSF should be assessed. Okay, protein level in the CSF should be assessed. So this will be increased. Protein level of the CSF should be assessed because this will be increased. So that is usually there. Then we have to go with other diagnostic tests such as CT scan, MRI scan. Then we have to collect the history of seizures, okay, whether they had any previous seizure attack was there, so that has to be checked. Then routine blood examination should be done, okay, routine blood examination should be done. So this is done mainly to check the presence of bacteria, okay, the presence of bacteria. So that is usually about this diagnostic evaluation that we usually go in case of this pyogenic meningitis. So that is CSF examination should be done, culture of the CSF, then protein level should be assessed in the CSF. Leukocyte count should be assessed, okay, leukocyte cell count should be checked, and also they have to go with other examinations such as CT scan, MRI scan, X-ray should be taken, and blood examination should be done. So this is about this diagnostic evaluation that we go in case of pyogenic meningitis. So next is management. So in case of this management, we start with antibiotic therapy, okay, we start as a bacterial infection, we start with antibiotic therapy. High doses of antibiotics should be given intravenously, okay, high doses of antibiotics should be given intravenously. The common antibiotics that we go, it is aromycin and penicillin, okay, the aromycin and penicillin it is frequently used, okay, aromycin and penicillin is frequently used. So that is usually done. And the other common drugs that we give it is ampicillin, gentamicin, chloramphenicol can be also used according to the doctor's culture, okay, according to the culture. The common drug that antibiotic therapy started, and the common drug that we give it is aromycin and penicillin. And after the results of the culture, we can give other drugs such as ampicillin, gentamicin, chloramphenicol, and can also be given. So that is usually done. Next is corticosteroids. Okay, the next therapy that we give it is corticosteroids. So corticosteroids should be given for the children who are more than 6 weeks. Okay, who are more than 6 weeks. So corticosteroids are given in the children who are more than 6 weeks, such as dexamethasone. Okay, the corticosteroids that we give it is usually dexamethasone. So that is usually given to the children. This is mainly given to prevent neurological complications. Okay, this is mainly given to prevent neurological complications. So that is usually there. So next, osmotic diuretic therapy. Okay, the next therapy it is osmotic diuretic therapy. So in this mannitol about 20%, okay, mannitol of about 20%, that is 0.5 mg per kg should be given. Okay, osmotic diuretic therapy, we go with giving them mannitol 20%, that is 0.5 mg per kg should be given for every 4 to 6 hours, and it should be given through IV. Okay, it should be given through IV, that is maximum of 6 doses should be given. So this is given, mannitol is given mainly to reduce intracranial pressure. Okay, the mannitol is usually given to reduce intracranial pressure. So that is usually done. And the next thing, it is anticonvulsive drugs. So the next thing that we usually give it is anticonvulsive drugs. So anticonvulsive drugs, mainly we go with giving them diazepam. Okay, mainly we go with giving them diazepam, that is 0.3 mg per kg should be given. Other than that, phenobarbital or phenytoin can also be used. Okay, other than that, phenobarbital or phenytoin can be given, and this is given mainly to manage convulsions. Okay, this is usually given to manage convulsions. So that is usually there. So next, hypotension can be managed with dopamine. Okay, hypotension if the baby is suffering from, then we can give them dopamine. So that is that. So other management that we go to is maintenance of fluid and electrolyte balance, and then antipyretics can be given to control fever. Then we can go with tube feeding can be started to improve nutritional status. Again, improve nutritional status. So this is about this management of pyogenic meningitis. So that is, we go with giving them, first is antibiotic therapy. We start with aromycin and penicillin. It should be given through IV. After the culture, we go with giving them ampicillin, gentamicin, chloramphenicol can be given. Then we go with giving them corticosteroids, that is dexamethasone. This is given mainly, this is also given through IV, and it is usually given mainly to reduce the neurological problems. So next is, we go with osmotic diuretic therapy, that is mannitol 20%, about 0.5 mg per kg will be given. So 0.5 mg per kg, it is given for every 4 to 6 hours, and it is also given through IV, and this is given mainly to reduce intracranial pressure. So then we go with giving them anticonvulsive drugs, that is diazepam, that is 0.3 mg per kg. This is also given through IV and is given to reduce convulsions. Other drugs can also be used like phenobarbital or phenytoin can be used. Then hypotension, if these children are suffering from, then it can be managed through dopamine. The other management that we go, it is like fluid and electrolyte balance should be corrected. Antipyretics should be given to reduce fever, and then we have to go with NG tube feeding should be started to improve the nutritional status. So this is usually about this pyogenic bacteria. So pyogenic meningitis, it is nothing but is the meningitis which is usually caused by bacteria. So therefore it is usually known as pyogenic meningitis. Okay, this is usually about this pyogenic meningitis. So next up, it is usually about this. The next type, it is tuberculosis meningitis. Okay, next is tuberculosis meningitis. So tuberculosis meningitis is the infection and inflammation of the meninges from tubercular bacilli. So tubercular meningitis, it is the infection and inflammation of the meninges. Okay, it is the infection and inflammation of the meninges from tubercular bacilli. Okay, from tubercular bacilli, which is also called as Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacilli. Okay, which is also called as Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacilli. So that is usually what happened. Tuberculosis meningitis is also inflammation of the meninges, which is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay, which is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So tubercular meningitis, it is nothing but it is the inflammation of the meninges which is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So this is usually a serious complication of childhood disease. Okay, it is childhood tuberculosis. It is a serious complication of childhood tuberculosis. So that is usually about this tuberculosis meningitis. So that is, it is the inflammation of the meninges that is usually caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And it is a serious complication of tuberculosis in the children. Okay, childhood tuberculosis, serious complication of childhood tuberculosis. So what are the causes? I have already told you that it is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. We will see about the symptoms of this tuberculosis meningitis. The symptoms usually include, the main symptoms usually include fever and chills, nausea and vomiting will be there, photophobia will be there, severe headache will be there, and meningismus will be there. Meningismus, it is nothing but stiff neck. So it is mainly, symptoms are usually, it develops slowly. Okay, the symptoms usually develop slowly, and the main symptoms that is usually seen, it is mainly fever and chills, mental state like fever and chills, photophobia will be there, nausea, vomiting, stiff neck will be there, as well as severe headache. So these are the common symptoms that is usually seen in case of tuberculosis meningitis. So there are other symptoms also in this tuberculosis meningitis. The other symptoms, it can be like, it is divided into 3 stages. There is pre-dormal stage, transitional stage and terminal stage. So there are other symptoms also in this tuberculosis meningitis, but it is divided into 3 stages: pre-dormal stage, transitional stage and terminal stage. The main symptoms, symptoms occurs gradually, and the main symptoms, it includes fever, chills, severe headache, photophobia, stiff neck, as well as nausea and vomiting. And the other symptoms, it is also present, but it is usually divided into 3 stages: pre-dormal, transitional as well as terminal. So when you talk about this pre-dormal stage, okay, when you talk about this pre-dormal stage, this is the first stage of illness. This is the first stage of illness. So in this, the bacteria enters and invades the body. Okay, the bacteria enters and invades the body and shows the features, symptoms. Okay, shows the symptoms. So in this pre-dormal stage, this is the first stage of illness where bacteria enters, that is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, enters in the body and starts invading and shows the symptoms. So what are the symptoms that it shows? Fever, anorexia, drowsiness, headache, irritability, sleep will be disturbed, weight loss, constipation, photophobia and convulsions. The symptom that is usually seen in this pre-dormal stage, it is fever, anorexia, headache, irritability, vomiting, constipation, photophobia, convulsions. So these are usually the symptoms that is usually seen in the pre-dormal stage. Pre-dormal stage, it is the first stage of illness where bacteria enters into the body and starts invading and shows the symptoms. The next stage, it is transitional stage. Okay, the next stage, it is usually transitional stage. So this stage is usually called as meningitis stage. Okay, this stage is usually called as meningitis stage. In this, the amount of CSF increases. Okay, the amount of CSF increases, that leads to increased intracranial pressure. Okay, that usually leads to increased intracranial pressure. So the next stage, it is transitional stage. This stage is usually called as meningitis stage. So in this stage, usually the CSF fluid increases. Okay, CSF fluid increases and it also increases the intracranial pressure. Okay, it also increases the intracranial pressure. And in this stage also, there are certain symptoms that is shown. The symptoms will include like Kernick sign, positive Bredinskind sign will be there, neck rigidity will be there, fever will be there, bradycardia will be there, headache, vomiting, respiratory disturbances can be seen, convulsions, and this usually seen. So in this transitional stage, this is the stage which is usually called as meningitis stage. In this, amount of CSF fluid increases and it usually that in turn leads to intracranial pressure and develops certain symptoms. So what are the symptoms that develop? This is Kernick sign will be there, Bredinskind sign will be positive, headache will be there, fever will be there, drowsiness, respiratory symptoms can be seen, bradycardia will be there, convulsions develop, as well as unconscious. So these are the symptoms that is usually seen in this transitional stage. So next is terminal stage. So in this stage, the child shows the symptoms of stage. It is a stage of coma and paralysis. Okay, this is stage of coma and paralysis. Okay, this is the stage of coma and paralysis. So this child usually has fever, irregular respiration will be there, so they will be having fever, irregular respiration will be there, bradycardia develop, as well as the pupil gets dilated. Okay, the pupil gets dilated and fixed. So in this terminal stage, so terminal stage is the stage of coma and paralysis. Okay, the stage of coma and paralysis. So in this stage, the symptoms that they develop, it is fever, neck rigidity will be there, constipation develops, the pupils get dilated and fixed. Okay, the pupils get dilated and fixed. And if this condition, if it is not treated, then it develops hydrocephalus. Okay, if it is not treated, then it develops hydrocephalus. So that is usually the symptoms of this tuberculosis meningitis. So it is mainly the first main symptoms are fever, chills, vomiting, nausea, headache, convulsions develop. Whereas in case of other symptoms includes depend on pre-dormal, transitional and terminal. Pre-dormal, beginning stage where bacteria enters and shows the symptoms. Transition stage is the meningitis stage where CSF increases and increases intracranial pressure and shows the symptoms. Terminal stage, it is the stage of coma and paralysis and shows the symptoms. So this is usually about the symptoms of tuberculosis meningitis. So next is diagnostic evaluation. So diagnostic evaluation, mainly we go with CSF culture. CSF examination will be done. History should be collected regarding like any tuberculosis, the baby was suffering from any tuberculosis. Then physical examination should be done. Then we will go with chest x-ray. X-ray of the chest X-ray should be done, as well as skull chest X-ray should be done. So that is usually the diagnostic test that usually we go with. This is, so mainly we go with history collection. History we will be collecting whether they were suffering from a tuberculosis. Then we go with physical examination, chest X-ray, X-ray of the skull, CSF examination will be done. Then HIV test has to be done. So these are usually the diagnostic evaluation that we do. So next is management. So when we talk about this management, mainly we start with anti-tuberculin drugs. Okay, we start with anti-tuberculin drugs such as isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide is given. Isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide is given. This should be given for 2 months. Okay, this should be given for 2 months along with streptomycin. Okay, along with streptomycin. Okay, the management usually starts with anti-tubercular drugs. That is usually we give isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide will be given. This will be given for 2 months along with streptomycin. Then after that, continuation phase should be given. That will be given 3 drugs will be added. That is ethambutol, rifampicin and isoniazid. Then it should be given for 10 months. Okay, then it should be given 10 months. The total treatment regimen it is 12 months. So it is first in this for 2 months we'll go with giving them isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide along with streptomycin. The next 10 months will be giving them isoniazid, ethambutol and rifampicin, and the total treatment months it is usually 12 months. So that is usually given. And then in children we can also start with corticosteroids. Okay, in children we can also start with corticosteroids who are suffering from cerebral edema. Okay, if the children are suffering from cerebral edema, we can give them corticosteroids, and this, that is dexamethasone is given. So this is given for 1 or 2 weeks. Okay, this is given for 1 or 2 weeks IV, and then 6 to 8 weeks it should be given, followed by 6 to 8 weeks it should be given orally. So first is anti-tuberculin drugs. The next is corticosteroid therapy. That is, it will be given only in those children who are suffering from cerebral edema. That is the drug which we give, it is dexamethasone. It is given through IV for 1 or 2 weeks. Then followed by 6 to 8 weeks it should be given orally. Okay, then it should be stopped. Okay, 6 to 8 weeks orally it should be given, then it should be stopped. Then we go with other symptomatic treatment like anticonvulsive drugs will be given, such as diazepam or phenobarbital will be given to reduce convulsion. Then we have to maintain fluid and electrolyte balance. Then pyridoxine will be given. Okay, pyridoxine 20 mg orally should be given. So this is given to reduce the complication side effects of isoniazid. Okay, it is given mainly to reduce the side effects of isoniazid. Then nutritional status should be maintained, where NG tube feeding will be given. Okay, NG tube feeding will be started, so that which is very essential for the young infant. So this is the management of tuberculosis meningitis. That is, we start with anti-tuberculin drugs. For first 2 months we give isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide. So this is given for 2 months along with streptomycin. Then we give for next 10 months we have to give isoniazid, ethambutol and rifampicin. The total treatment regimen is 12 months. Then we go with corticosteroids, and dexamethasone should be given for 1 or 2 weeks through IV, followed by orally. It should continue for 6 to 8 weeks. Then symptomatic treatment will be given, like anticonvulsive drugs will be given, fluid and electrolyte balance will be maintained, antipyretics will be given if fever is present. Then we give pyridoxine. This is mainly given 20 mg for reducing the side effects of isoniazid. Then nutritional status should be assessed. So this is usually about this tuberculosis meningitis. So tuberculosis meningitis is nothing but which is usually caused by Mycobacterium tuberculare, and is a common complication of childhood tuberculosis. So in this class we have studied about meningitis. Meningitis is nothing but inflammation of the meninges, which is outer covering of the brain and spinal cord. This is usually classified into 4 types: pyogenic, tuberculous meningitis, syphilitic and aseptic, where we'll concentrate on mainly pyogenic meningitis and tuberculin meningitis, where we have completely dealt about pyogenic meningitis, which is mainly caused by bacteria. Tuberculin meningitis is mainly caused by Mycobacterium tuberculare, where we have completely discussed in this class about the meningitis.